All right. Hey, thinking about selling your business? Forrest explains why operations, not revenue, determines your valuation and future success. Forrest, welcome to the Go4CEO channel. How are you?
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, look, we love to hear that initial ideation. Derr Consulting, were you a part of the industry? Were you working in a big C-suite, scenario, and then kind of went on your own? But love the story of the idea of how to get started on your own and that entrepreneurial journey. So take it away.
Yeah, I like to tell people I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. So I didn't start out to be an entrepreneur. I just ended up being one. So historically, I've worked for founder-led businesses and helping them scale and grow their businesses, which is kind of where my sweet spot has been. And so the idea of opening my own business was not necessarily a direct plan or my vision for what I wanted to do. But as I moved through the businesses that I work with, I realized that my niche was helping founder-led businesses get structured and organized. So I worked for a office furniture company for 18 years, left there to go to a telecom company, worked there for about 8.5 years, and then left there to go to a landscaping company of all places. Worked as a COO there. But the reason I left to go to that landscaping company was because the founder had multiple businesses, and my goal was to help him grow and scale and get all those businesses organized, which we did. And then I decided that it was time to go ahead and step my foot out and help multiple businesses at one time.
I love it. Well, look, there's that journey of different industries, different competencies that you grow out through the years. And yeah, sometimes it is good to just stay number two or number 15 or number
Yep,
27 at a company. A lot of times people don't realize, right? It's not always all sunshine and rainbows
right.
starting your thing, right? So, and you don't actually determine, right, how many hours you're going to work because you're working all the hours
That's
as
right.
your own business, right?
Yeah.
I love Dana White. Saw some recent clip where he's like, "Yeah, welcome to reality, buddy. It's
Hmm.
your own business. This isn't about just taking off whenever you want." So awesome stuff. Well, hey, look, obviously different industries. I relate because I was in telecom. I was in the automotive, and then got into commercial banking a while back. And I love touching different industries, but ultimately business is somewhat similar in every industry, right? You
Yep.
can take the components of success. So as you extracted yourself out of the C-suite position, what was the final determination of saying, okay, well, Derr Consulting is kind of where I'm going to lay my hat.
Yeah. So I talked to a couple of fractional executives throughout the years before I decided to make this jump and realized that there really was a spot for me to help multiple businesses. And there was a way to build a business around that. And there's just so many founder-led businesses, smaller businesses in the, $2 to $50 million range that can't afford a full-time COO or don't even know what that looks like. And so that was what I realized that I'm not a specialist, so I don't consider myself a specialist in marketing or sales or operations or finance. I consider myself a generalist. And what's happened in that process is you would think that a lot of these business owners have understood and learned how to run a business. But I tell them, you've been successful with brute force. And every one of them, it seems to resonate that they've been successful through brute force. They're working 80 hours a week. And so my process is to go in and help them figure out how to scale that business with processes and systems and structure rather than trying to just continually to push that rock up a hill.
Nice, nice. So I guess from the experiences that you had, let's dive a little bit deeper in that, right? Because, I think there's a lot of great sentiment and great information out there on the internet. And now with AI, processes and systems seem to be accelerating, right, with the
Mhm.
way that you can kind of implement and execute those things. So what were maybe a couple of examples of the types of things that you learned throughout the process that now are kind of very identifiable for you when you walk into a business?
Yeah, one of the first things I want to do is map out what does the accountability structure look like in the business. And as established businesses that I've been working in, and very few of them, I've had a couple of startups that I've worked with, but most of them are 10, 15-year-old businesses. Very few of them have a clearly defined understanding of who reports to who in that business. And so it's just interesting to find or go through the process of helping those people figure out who reports to who and what does that business structure look like. The other one I find interesting is, and I just did a post recently on this about it, is a techability chart. And you think about accountability, but techability, everybody is using apps, everybody's using AI, everybody's using APIs to connect interconnected business applications, but nobody that I've come across consistently has a map on what does what and what applications and how are they connected. So that's one of the interesting things. I've always done it in the businesses that I've worked in. I just didn't realize how limited it was or how limited use it was for people that they just don't understand how many apps. And it's always amazing to see their eyes light up in fear when you open up the can of worms to say, how many different apps do you have and how many duplications do you have? How many password managers do you have in your organization? So,
Yeah, no, I've had the recently probably three or four guests talk about that tech stack, right?
hmm yeah,
How many unused? It kind of I relate it to personal. You cut the cable of or cut the cord of cable and then get 18 apps to
yep,
stream, and you're not using, you know, 30, 50% of those as well. So, uh,
yeah.
but you're paying
And
for it. So.
yeah, and that's definitely part of it. And I would say my motivation is not to save money, but that definitely comes into play as part of the process. My bigger picture is what are you using and how are you using it? I find that people are, evaluating new applications and they've already got software in their stack that does it. They just didn't realize it and weren't utilizing it. And so shining a light on that and making every technical decision based off looking through that tech stack or tech ability map, whatever you want to call it, really helps people have clarity on what do they need to be purchasing and what do they need to be getting rid of.
Okay, so let's go through, a formulaic sense of that, right? So
Mhm.
you walk into the business, someone engages with you, right? And you find this opportunity where you say, hey, your tech stack or those things that are out there, and you have it in your systems.
hmm
What is your process? Are you working with the vendors directly to now kind of go deeper on like, hey, this piece of software that we have here, it says on your website it does 18 things. We're only using three. Is
Yeah.
that the process? Like, what are you trying to identify?
Yeah, and that's actually further down in the process. The biggest, the starting point is just to ask if they have a leadership team established, what are the applications that are being used? And so I will literally just open up a really basic drawing program and start making boxes with the name of the program in it and how they might interconnect. And, I just worked with a team recently that has 7 leadership team members, and all 7 of them probably had, 30 or 40% of the same applications that they came up with. The rest of them, the other leadership teams members didn't even know that those programs were being used. And so just getting it out on paper, so to speak, and getting it laid out is the first step. Then the next step is to identify what is the purpose of each app. So QuickBooks, that's your financial package, or, there may be some type of jobber that's your billing ticketing system for the landscaping company. So identifying what the purpose of those apps are, how they interconnect, and then we start talking about what are the functions that we're using. And inevitably, we end up having to go to a vendor and say, okay, I realized based off your website that you actually have a CRM, but we're also using HubSpot. Do we really need to pay for HubSpot, or could we use the CRM that's within Jobber? Maybe it's not powerful enough, maybe doesn't have the features, but we'll go through that evaluation process. And I use a term called keep, kill, and combine. Keep, kill, and combine and remove applications to get that tech stack down to a much smaller stack.
KKC. I love my acronyms, by the way.
Yeah,
I used to stay, John the Bomb, building others means business. So
yeah,
BOID.
yeah.
But
Or
no,
KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
right, that's right. Well, acronyms work for a reason, right?
Yeah,
It connects in the brain and keeps you understanding. All right, here's the simplicity of it. So,
right.
all right, so from the day-to-day operation of being a business, right,
Mhm.
and being a consultant, being now kind of that fractional side, which the industry has exploded in
Yeah.
CMO, CFO, and COO, and all these, different expertises that can, work with different businesses all at one time.
hmm
What was that like initially? Did you start off with maybe some connections that you had? Because I love to hear, and the GO4CEO community always loves hearing, like, how did you grow the business once you
Yeah.
decided to go on your own?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I actually recently I created a playbook because I kept having people ask me this question. So I've had a lot of people ask me on LinkedIn, how did you get started? What did you do? And I tell everybody I'm an overnight success that took about 28 years in the making. Like any business, it's not something that just happens overnight. So I spent about 2 years preparing for this, thinking it was going to take me 5 years to do it, but it took me 2 years to do it. So it was not something that I just woke up one morning and decided to do it. I've been building my LinkedIn network out and making connections with prospects or potential prospects down the road for years, setting the stage for this. But then the other thing I've done, and I encourage anybody that's in a full-time executive position, start networking with people. I call it net weaving, but start net weaving with people and helping them without looking for anything in return. Start have a coffee with them and help them think through some business decisions. If you're looking to be a fractional COO, I can't tell you how many customers or non-customers that I helped for free over lunch and over coffee for that first 2 years. And
Hmm.
many of those turned into clients, helping them over lunch, helping them over coffee, just helping them think through problem solving. And then lo and behold, you hang your shingle out. And, one of my first contracts was somebody that I've been helping for a couple of years over coffee and over lunch. And she sent me a message. She was like, I see you're doing this now. I'm ready. Go ahead and sign me up. And it's been an interesting process. So help first, but also build your network out because you cannot leave your job or get laid off your job and very quickly roll up a business or spin up a business without building that network out.
Yeah, no, I saw on LinkedIn just as one of the platforms, you have over 12,000 connections, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously that takes time and
Yep.
as you said, 28 years of being in the industry and different industries, you've been that COO, type. Um, but I guess it's interesting, right? That you went a bit of the freemium, they call it, right? A freemium
Hmm.
model where you went out there and shared a lot of great content. You're
Yep.
sitting down with people. But you still have to pay the bills, right? And we
Yep.
are GO4CEO, so you are that
Yep.
CEO mindset. Um, what would you say helped you to not be necessarily too starving for that
Hmm.
business, but yet, patient enough to build that brand that you had? Did you fund yourself with
Yep.
maybe your own self-funding? Did you bootstrap it? Did you look for an SBA loan? What were some of the ways that you capitalized yourself initially?
It's interesting, and I've talked to a lot of people that don't understand how I did it this way. But I literally left my job my last day. I put a month's notice, and my last day was on like the 13th of December. And I had three contracts signed within 10 days. And so January 7th, I started and I was billing clients.
Wow.
So I had some savings put aside. I didn't, go into it blind, not thinking. My thought process was, I've got 6 months stashed away. I could live off that if it takes me a while to spin up and get clients. But then I go back to the reason I feel like I was successful is because I was doing that freemium work. I had a network of people who were already asking me for advice, asking me to have coffee with them to talk through things, that it was surprisingly easy to convert those clients to clients that were actually paying.
Nice. So what I'm getting to is you were actually working at this without necessarily thinking like, hey, I'm going to go on my own.
Yeah,
You're already building the momentum, right?
yeah,
Like you said, I mean, from December 13th to January 7th, it's not like you just lit a light bulb and all of a sudden people are like, oh, yeah, hey,
yeah,
this is in business. Why don't I
yeah.
connect with him? You had already planted so many seeds and Go for SEO community. That is huge, right? When you're
Yes,
thinking about this, in our society now, yeah, we're talking about multiple streams of income, but that doesn't mean you have to leave your income and go abruptly do something. Do what
right.
Forrest did, and what I think is shared here is you're kind of slowly churning the wheel of, oh, this could be a possibility. Here's another connection, planted a
Yep.
seed, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have that lift off. So awesome. So those first few clients, had you already set up kind of a introductory call process,
Mhm.
discovery, scenario? What was kind of your way of getting into the business to do the best things that you do?
Yeah, so I went up and developed a proven process that allows me to say, my first step in that proven process with a client journey is to have an hour-long meeting with them. And typically it's over coffee or over lunch, and just ask a bunch of questions about their business and give them some free tips on things that I uncover just in that first conversation to immediately add value. After that first meeting, if we confirm that it's a go ahead, we need to have a second discovery process, first consult. I basically bill them for a full day. So I charge for a full day, my normal rate. They sign a contract to spend a day in their business, and my reward for that for them is that we will walk out of that day with a very clear evaluation of where the business is, where the gaps are, but also a roadmap on how to fix those gaps. And so I'll leave them with a strategic plan, typically on a dry erase board. We've written it up and then I'll type it up into a better format. But at the end of that meeting, my conversation is here's where we've discovered the gaps. Here's where you know that you need to improve. Here's what steps you need to take. Do you want to do this by yourself, or would you like me to go on this journey with you? And more often than not, they say, yes, I would like for you to go on that journey. And then we come up with a strategy on what that looks like. My core business is one day a week with a client. So I've got three clients that I work with one day a week. And then the rest of them are one day a month or one day a quarter, or sometimes they're bi-weekly, just depends on what the engagement looks like.
So let me ask you, I mean, it was kind of bubbling in my head here while you're, answering,
Yeah,
Hermosi, there's a guy named Alex Hermosi who's
yeah,
doing a lot of content out there. He's pretty brilliant for a younger
yeah,
guy.
yeah, I follow him.
So, he talks about sharing kind of the goal and the results, but not sharing the how, because that's what your expertise is, right? And
Hmm. Yep,
how do you engage with someone if you just give them everything? So
right.
what's the fine line in that hour first discovery or
Yeah,
even that day engagement that they say, okay, I'll give you a day, I'll pay you for that one day.
yeah,
When you're figuring out these things, are you going through each line item? Are you going into their balance sheet to understand some of the
yeah,
financials, but then also going into each segment of their business? Are you talking
yeah.
to marketing people, their operating people? So, like, give us a little taste of kind of what your system would be in that scenario.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple flow where I'm looking at what is the core focus of the business, and sometimes that has been defined and not been defined, just depends on the business. But then what is your target market and what is your product offering? And basically creating almost a one-page business plan on a dry erase board to get what's in their head out on paper. A lot of these founders have all this stuff in their head, but they haven't shared it with anybody. So if I can just spend some time to get that onto a dry erase board, um, now that we've understand what the core focus is, where the company's going, what the target market is, what the products are, then how are you doing and where are the gaps? What are the things that you're selling that you're making a loss on versus what are the things you're making profit on, and how do we spend time on those types of things? So just mapping out that structure of the business uncovers things without me asking, let's go look at your balance sheet. That balance sheet comes up in the conversation. Give me your P&L. Well, that comes up in the conversation where I'm asking questions. So it's basically a workflow of questions to help analyze where the business is. And it inevitably, it's very interesting at the end of those meetings, what happens. I ask them, I said, did I tell you anything you didn't have? Did I pull any information that you didn't actually have? And they're like, no. And I said, you had all the answers. I just asked the right questions. And getting those right questions out is what is powerful, that turns the light on. They're like, wow, I did not realize this is where the issues were in my business. Now, how do we fix them?
Interesting. You lead me to I have so many small to medium sized in that 2 to 50 million space, which I
Hmm.
work with a lot on my day-to-day commercial banking side. It's interesting that there's not an advisory board, right? And
Mm,
I'd love to ask you, obviously, being fractional is kind of like in a
yeah,
similarity of an advisory board because you're
yeah,
coming in for a fraction of the time, but you're actually implementing yourself into that business and learning about it. So
yeah,
what's your thoughts about that, and how you've seen that emerging middle market, companies work through what they need to solve?
yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of businesses that are going into groups like Vistage or C12 that are out there, and I think those are good advisory boards. I've not been on one, but I know a lot of companies that have been in those, and some of my clients are actually in those, and I think those are good. But finding other networking groups, we haven't talked about this yet, but there was a chapter that I started around businesses running on EOS called Energy, and we called it the Entrepreneurial Network Resource Group. And those chapters have been really powerful to help founders-led businesses specifically to get in a room once a month and IDS, or identify, discuss, and solve issues. And so there's, I think, 66 chapters now across the country. And it's like a little bit of advisory board. It's not structured in that it's limited to 12 people or anything like that. But what I found is if you get uh, founders focused that are focused on growing their business and scaling their business, if you get them in a room together and just provide a structure where they can have conversations, they'll solve problems together. But then the really magic is cool that I've seen is watching those people pair up without any structure, without me saying, hey, you guys get together and you guys get together. And just seeing them in the local area in a coffee shop and going over business plans together. I've even seen independent insurance agencies that you would think those guys are competing with each other in the same market, in the same town. They're helping each other because they're actually working with different clients and there's enough business to go around. So I would encourage anybody that's a founder-led business to go find a group that you can meet with. There's lots of them out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, in fact, it's funny. Yeah, yesterday I was introduced to a gentleman that's growing out a Vistage, type of network and
Yeah.
group, and that's kind of the things that I've always been thinking about. Like, hey, how does this founder or where do they spend their time to be able to be effective, right?
Hmm.
Bringing in a fractional COO, CFO, CMO, those types of things, and that expertise is always big, but also kind of like you said, surrounding yourself with the right mindset of what they're struggling with may be something that you could identify and vice
Yeah.
versa, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
well, all right. So, hey, January 13th, you explode, you get this, you get two, three, four clients, right? Or I'm
Hmm.
sorry, it was December 13th to January
Yeah.
2nd.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you get these couple clients, but what is your mindset of how to bill? You mentioned that you're doing a 1 day thing that you do bill out, and you
Yeah.
have them sign something.
Yeah.
What kind of the way that you've patterned out, and has it changed? Has it
Yeah.
nimble, like, or do different clients get different structures? What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on that as a fractional?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different models out there. The one I chose to do was being more focused and intentional on helping a small group of clients with dedicated time, and then other clients that have a little bit more loose agreements. But I charge a retainer, so I charge a fee per month, a retainer that covers that 1 day a week. And that 1 day a week, I say it's 1 day a week, but it's really 1 day of effort. I've had some clients that only want about 4 hours of time working with them a day per week, and then others, want 8 hours a time. Definitely not punching a clock, not keeping track of hours. That's just my mental note of how much time I'm spending with them. But my position is to, and my I guess my market is to go in and work myself out of a job. So I typically do not want to work with a client for a really, really long time. My oldest client, that was one of my first ones, actually my first one to sign the contract. We've gotten a full-time COO that is going into that position. She started a couple of weeks ago, and she's going to be fully immersed in the position in January, so that client will roll off. But most of my clients have been between 6 to 9 months. Only been a year into it, so it's not a lot of clients, but most of my clients are 6 to 9 months. And my goal going into it is to work myself out of a job.
Okay, well, you said
Yeah,
something interesting, right?
yeah,
If you're working yourself out of a job,
hmm,
and you're in with these clients, what is your marketing strategy for the next client?
yeah,
What a big referral guy? Do you have a
yeah.
great, right now some sort of SEO program that
Yeah.
you've been running? What is your strategy to grow while you're maintaining and operating?
Yeah, and that is the challenge, just keeping that pipeline full. So I've got an excellent referral network. Most of the clients that I've gotten that I did not know came through referrals. I had one that was a LinkedIn connection where somebody just sent me a message on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I've been following your content. Don't know if I'm a client, but let's have a conversation." So that was just out of content. I'm building a lot of content, doing a lot of videos explaining what I do, little short 45-second to a minute and a half videos. And while I'm not getting as much impressions as I get on my standard posts, I'm getting more engagement. I'm having more people reach out and ask questions. So keeping in front of people is huge. Keeping those posts on LinkedIn, but then also building that referral network has been a big part of my success.
Okay. And what do you think about, obviously when you go on your own, everything's on you. You're wearing every hat, right?
Right.
You're marketing yourself, you're selling yourself, you're
Yeah.
you're implementing yourself, you're putting all these systems and processes in together. And obviously you've had a long tenured success with the way that you were in the C-suite before.
Hmm.
What is your thoughts going into the second, going into the third, going into the fourth year? What are some growth initiatives that you have? Is it maintaining a certain type of amount of clients, or is it
Hmm.
also bringing in maybe some talent that can help you relieve some of the work that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, honestly, that's been one of my challenges is trying to figure out what that looks like. I've had several people reach out to me and ask me if I would be willing to hire them and I could build the umbrella of the business and support them through that. But I just have not. I really enjoy not having any employees right now. I've had employees for a number of years, or at least led companies with employees, but it's been nice. So I've got a virtual assistant, an executive assistant that helps me with calendar management, things like that. And then I've got an executive coach that I work with twice a month, which has been extremely helpful for me to think through my business. But from a standpoint of 2026, my goal is continue to maintain a three group of tight clients that I work with 1 day of effort a week. And then I'm in the process of building out small business cohorts. And so my plan is to start a small business cohort in February where we'll meet once a quarter and go over marketing as one topic, sales is the next topic, operations is the next topic, finance is the next topic. So basically, have 4 quarterly meetings with that group of 10 small businesses. And then help them solve whatever those problems are. First half of the day, cover content. Second half of the day, actually solve problems. And my thought process is yes, that's going to generate some revenue, but I'd bet at least 1 to 10 of those clients is going to convert into a 1 day a week client once I work with them. So,
Okay, so that's an interesting marketing strategy, right? You're bringing in through your context, through your network,
yep,
building these small peer groups, like you said, cohorts.
yep,
What is going to be the facilitation? You're the facilitator
yep.
slash engager of conversations, and then how do you? I guess what's the mindset? Right? Are you plugging yourself into a conversation and saying, "Hey, oh, I've got a solution, I've got an opportunity here. What do you think about
Yeah.
this?" Like,
Yeah.
that how it drums up?
Yeah, so my thought process, and I've talked to several people I've got 3 people who have verbally committed to join the group starting in February, just started marketing it. But I have a strong network of fractional executives in this area. So I've got a fractional CMO in this area. I've got a fractional CFO. I've got a fractional HR person. I've got a fractional culture person. All these people are in the same mindset as me. How do I get in front of people and potential targets? And so my thought process is to go ahead and just build out and bring those people in, those subject matter experts, to lead the conversation for the first half of the day. So break it up into components about what they're going to talk about. And then the last half of the day would be basically us sitting down and having people bring forth issues, have them prepared for it. What are you struggling with in marketing? Specifically with your business, let's talk through as a group. Let's figure out how to solve that problem for you. What I've seen in doing that with these energy groups is that even though somebody may not bring a problem, they listen and hear somebody else solve a problem and they can apply it to what they're doing. So that's the magic of getting those founders in the room together.
Nate, Nate, so the energy groups, will there be some sort of subscription model that they adhere to, or and they're getting billed on, or?
Well, the Energy is a nonprofit, and so those groups are established, and there's no subscription model. This small business cohort is definitely going to be a subscription model. So there's going to be a quarterly fee that they pay to sign up to be a part of that. They've got to commit to come to the 4 meetings, as well as that part of that process is I will support them by answering questions and helping them enter in the interim between the quarterly meetings.
Nate, awesome, awesome. Well, look, it's been interesting, right? Having a lot of fractional experts on the podcast has really kind of opened my eyes over the last few years of just understanding where this industry is going, what industry you guys created, right, from your
Yeah,
expertise and decades of wisdom in that space, and being able to drive now a business, particularly by yourself within your own network. So.
yeah,
Anything else that you're working on right now? Like you said, there's some playbooks, there's
yeah.
obviously this cohort. Anything else that you'd like to share with the audience that kind of makes a difference of, how they engage with you and work with you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying being on your podcast, and I'm a frequent podcast guest host. But I also have a podcast that we started about a month ago called Fixers and Founders, and we're only on episode 5, I think, right now. But it's been interesting to bring in the fixers, which a lot of times are the COOs or the fractional COOs, and then the founders, which are the visionaries of the businesses that started. And just we're having 15 to 20 minute conversation, real short, brief podcast to get to the root of the issues and help people solve problems. So fixers and founders, if you want to follow that or check that out.
Nice, nice. And I recently wrote a book, The 4A Formula, Untangle Any Challenge and Think Like a CEO. So I love what you're doing. I really feel like that expertise lends itself. Now, it's not easy,
Hmm.
obviously, maybe going from a nice six-figure income to going on your own is can be challenging.
Yeah,
I love that you set yourself up for success while you were still kind of in that mode inside of an organization and
right.
built enough momentum, right, to get you out of there. And now you've successfully had a year under your belt. Any thoughts about, besides the virtual assistant and some of the talent that you'd like to bring in, or will this consistently be, you think, over the next few years, kind of slash, fractional for just yourself?
Yeah, at this point, I'm still thinking I'm going to stay for myself for the next 12 months while I continue to generate revenue and build up with this structure. These cohorts are going to be neat because I don't really have to bring on any employees, but I'm able to leverage other fractional experts that are like me, where they're trying to get in front of people. So I think I might be able to have my cake and eat it too, and have people come in without having to have employees, but they get the benefit of helping those businesses as well as picking up some prospects.
Interesting, interesting. Well, no, that's another, again, marketing,
Yep.
sales, operations, leadership, all these things that you have to do to really think about the entrepreneurial journey
Yep.
is something that we at the Go4CEO channel love to kind of dive into. It's certainly a passion for me. Having been an entrepreneur myself and then affectionately became a commercial banker. So I kind of went the opposite of entrepreneur to intrapreneur.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up the interview, typically we go through CEO, right? So,
Hmm.
client experience, E is
Hmm.
for engagement with your
Hmm.
vendors, with the tools and things like that. So, and then operational excellence is, what are the tools that you're actually implementing to help you from a VA? It could be a
Hmm.
live human being to some actual HubSpot that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So, client experience, if you think about Derr Consulting,
Hmm.
value proposition out in the marketplace, someone sees the next 60 seconds. What is that value proposition for a client experience when they do business with you?
I help a founder's phone stop ringing. That's the client experience. That's the value that I bring, and that was not something that I claimed up with this awesome marketing strategy. I had a founder that was sitting in a meeting, and he said, "Do you know what? After the last 4 months, my phone doesn't ring anymore." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" And he said, "My phone doesn't ring. It used to ring with employees wanting me to make decisions all the time, but now that we built the structure that we needed to have, I can take a 4 hour meeting with a client and not get a single phone call. So I help your phone stop ringing so your bank account starts singing."
Ah, I love it. I love it. All right. So engagement,
Yeah.
I've always asked this question because I think every leader, every person in business has a little bit of different style. Some people like to, break bread and drink and have a good time and happy hour it. Some
Yeah.
people do retreats. Some people like to
Yeah.
bring people to events, right? Cubs game or,
Yeah.
something like that out here. So what is your style so that not only the client engages, maybe your VA engages with
Mhm.
you. You're like, how are you planning to keep that engagement when people think about doing business with you?
Yeah. Continue communication with them. So I like to have a regular cadence of meetings, check-ins, and follow up with them. But also, I've mentioned coffee a couple of times. It's amazing how many great conversations that I can have over a cup of coffee with somebody that really disarms them and helps them share openly and honestly what's going on in their business.
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, little podcast secret here. It's beautiful to bring someone onto your podcast because it
Hmm.
completely disarms them. You
Yeah.
have 20, 30, like you're in your case or my case, 45 minutes of just asking them to talk about themselves. And it's
Yeah.
amazing, the human thing, right? We all love to talk about ourselves and what we're doing. And it turns into an opportunity to really kind of connect. at a different level without having to be like, hey, I'm visiting you because I'm about to sell you. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
It does disarm them for sure.
Interesting, way to do it. So, last one is operational excellence. You mentioned QuickBooks and some tools. I'm sure that you use so many of them throughout your, executive career. What are
Yeah.
things that you're using today? Are you using AI? Are you
Mm.
using HubSpot? Like, what? How are you organizing yourself? So, what are the tools that
Yeah.
at your consulting business you're using day to day?
Great question. So, uh, almost all my clients, not every one of them, but almost all of them are running on EOS. And so, Entrepreneur Operating System, if your audience hasn't heard of that. But most of my clients are using a software, and myself as well, are using software called 90.io. And that software really helps you build out the structure of managing your to-dos, managing your issues, managing your business plan. So, again, one of the questions I ask client is, "Where's your business plan?" And typically they say, "Oh, it's a Word document." Well, where is it? It's SharePoint. I don't know. I said, "When was the last time you looked at it?" A couple of years ago. How many pages is it? 150. It was a template that I downloaded, and so when you can get your business plan into a very simplified format that is very accessible, that you can look at over and over again, that software allows you to do that, and it's amazing using that software. I had a client yesterday I was working with, and we were having a discussion. I said, well, let's go and look at what the VTO says because we already decided this and it's on paper. So let's go back and look at it. Let's refresh our memories. So 90 is one of the big softwares that I use.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Go for CEO Community 90. I've not heard that actual piece, so
Yeah, you check it out.
thank you for sharing that. So, you've inspired me to ask a question I actually don't think I've asked yet.
Okay.
What is, in this first year and going forward,
Yeah.
your why? Like, why are you doing this? It seems like
Mhm.
obviously you've had a storied career.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily intentionally become an entrepreneur, but you built momentum and then you were able to launch much faster than most people. So, what
Yeah.
is the why, if you could share it in a few sentences, that
Yeah.
you're in business today for?
I am here to get founders and business owners to get unshackled from their business. So many times I will talk to people and I ask them, business owners, I'm like, so do you have a job or a business? And like, oh, I've got a business. I'm like, so can you take a vacation? Well, no. When was the last time you took a whole weekend off where you didn't do anything? Never. There's so many business owners that are actually not business owners. They just have really high paying jobs. And so if I can help business owners get unshackled from their business to where they actually have a business and don't have a job, and they can take a month off or 2 months off of vacation and the whole thing doesn't crash and burn, that's really been my passion. I did it without realizing it with the companies that I worked for full time. That's what I was doing. But now that I've realized what's possible, I want to open the doors so that these founders can be relieved of that pressure.
Well, what a great mission, Forrest, you're on, and pretty exciting to have you into the marketplace now on your own, Derr Consulting, GO4CEO community. Take a look at his podcast as well. Subscribe to my podcast if you haven't subscribed right now. Hit that like
Absolutely.
button. Share this interview. It's so cool to have. This is what the intention was of Go4CEO, is having small to medium-sized business owners, right? Solopreneur business owners, investors to be able to come into this network and be able to share the ideas and stories because it's what the world, part of what makes the world go round is what I was trying to say. So
Yeah.
awesome stuff. So, and by the way, check out the book, The 4A Formula: Assess, Alignment, Take Accountability, and Take Final Action. Because without action, right, going to every webinar, listening to every podcast, and doing all this learning, there's no action behind it. You gotta get into that mode of action ultimately and untangle any challenge. So, any place that you prefer that people get a hold of you, DMs on LinkedIn, direct phone call, emails, share that with the audience.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best. That's where I'm most active. Is You should be able to find me pretty easy. I think I'm the only Forester out there on LinkedIn. And then I do have a website, derrconsulting.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the Go Show channel, and we look forward to your success and maybe having you back on too in a year or two and seeing kind of what's progressed and what you're doing in the marketplace. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.